This time I'd like to introduce our candidates, and I'm going to introduce them in the order of our drawing. Our first candidate is Gregory. Greg, if you'll come and take your place at the podium at the table. Next we have Jim Largent. And Mike Lane. At this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the night, Richard Watson. Richard is a pharmacist. He served as a Republican Party precinct chairman. He served on the Texas State Board of Education, and he is currently pastor at New Hope Baptist Church in Gorman, Texas. Give Richard a round of applause. Thank you, Richard. To kind of go over what the format of tonight's event will be, and sort of the rules of how this will go. Each candidate is going to have 3 minutes to give an opening remark. Then, after the opening remark, we'll go into a question and answer session. And each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer the question. And after all the candidates have answered the question, they'll have a 1 minute rebuttal if they so choose. At the end of our question and answer time, they will have 5 minutes or so to give their closing remarks. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn the program over to Richard Watson.
We will begin with the opening remarks, and Mr. Risse, you may go first.
Sure. Thank you for coming out. Good crowd. All that went on behind all this is I'm really, really thankful for. I'm not from Texas. Don't bar the doors. But 13 of my 20 years in the Air Force were here in Texas, mainly Fort Worth and San Antonio. I grew up in northern Minnesota. And my first recollection of Texas is my dad would bring me down to the Minnesota Vikings, Dallas Cowboys football game. And I remember as a 12-year-old, my dad would point, he'd say, "Greg, there's the fastest man in the world." Tell me who it was. Bob Hayes. That's a long time ago, number 22, Bob Hayes. So I went in the Air Force, married a gal from San Antonio, a little Puerto Rican girl, and we were married just one month shy of 35 years. And she passed away in 2010 of a heart failure, and God gave us 6 children. And I've got almost 19 grandchildren now, so that's good. We're settled in Texas. I retired from the Air Force in '92, went back to college at Angelo State University. I was wondering if somebody could get that Bob Hayes thing. Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. And got my degree in teaching and coaching, and I was in 3 places, Blanket and Winters and Paint Rock. You probably heard of two or three of those, maybe all of them. And I was a special ed teacher and a coach, and so I retired from teaching. And so I'm sitting on the couch. This will be kind of different, because I'm sitting on the couch wondering, what's my third career going to be? And I've always been interested in Texas and things that are happening around our great state. And like I said, this is going to be different. I heard President Obama say that Caitlyn Jenner is a hero. Well, you heard it too. Well, I get riled up. I can't sit at that. And then I hear that Hugh Hefner is an icon. Well, I'm sorry, see? And then I hear that these politicians down in Austin or different places are abusing women and paying them with our tax money to be quiet. And Dr. Largent, I couldn't sit anymore, because I've got ideas about immigration and about teacher reform and veterans, obviously. And I'm going to bring them to the forefront. Is there anybody who's going to hold up something that's 30 seconds to go? Got 1 more minute. Okay, I'll make it good. I'm going to give a quote. I don't give too many quotes, but this is I'm not going to bore you to death. Those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law. They are showing disregard for those who are following the law. We cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting to lawfully become immigrants. Now, that wasn't from some right-wing Republican with a sword up in his hand. That was from Barack Obama. So we can do a lot better than that. And so I've got a plan for this. And thank you.
Mr. Largent.
Thank you for having me tonight, and it's good to be here in Eastland County. And my name is Jim Largent. I'm the proud superintendent of Granbury ISD. Thank you. Got some people out there from Granbury. It's always good. I grew up in rural Texas, was raised there, rural East Texas. Went to college at Lamar University in Beaumont. And after graduating from Lamar, I started a 31-year career in public education. I've been a classroom teacher, a coach, athletic trainer, head baseball coach, football coach. I've been an assistant high school principal, a high school principal, and now a superintendent. I've been a superintendent in 1A, 3A, and 5A school districts. So I have been in rural Texas all my life. Granbury is the largest place I've ever lived other than Beaumont when I was in college. So, you know, the things that I'm running on are taking care of rural Texas. We have some issues that are different than Houston and Dallas. We have some issues that affect us differently than the city. And I believe we need some people in Austin who represent rural Texas, who will come out and meet with local leaders, who will come out and meet with all of our county officials who are having to deal with these unfunded mandates and having to deal with the lack of local control and trying to deal with Austin pushing down policies and regulations on our local schools, counties, cities. And so those are the issues that are important for me. That's why I'm running. And I hope after tonight I can gain your respect and your vote. Thank you for having me.
I'm Mike Lang. Thank you for having me here. I'm also your current state representative, and I appreciate your vote last time, and I hope to earn it again this time. Graduated from TCU, spent 30 years in law enforcement, 27 and a half years in Fort Worth PD, and 2.5 years as an elected constable in Hood County. I was standing up here 2 years ago, almost to the day, as a candidate running for this spot. I'm running for it again. And I promised you guys that I would follow certain guidelines and where God stood in my life and where our rights come from. And our rights come from God. And they don't come from government because government's not supposed to take away our rights. And I lived that. And I voted that way. I was the second most conservative, fiscal conservative in the House out of 150 members. And I was socially conservative. I followed life, liberty, and property. Life, I'm endorsed by Texas Right to Life, the largest, biggest right to life group there is. I've had co-authored bills for abolish abortion, liberties, Second Amendment, First Amendment, and then property. I'm endorsed by Texas Farm Bureau, and that's rural, as rural as you can get. The Texas Cattle Raisers Association endorsed me too. So I went down there to do what I promised you I would do. And a lot of that is following the Republican Party platform. And that's why we're here tonight. We're here for the Republican Party primary. In the Republican Party primary, it's not the Democrat primary, we have our own planks that you guys put together. They're your planks, from the precincts that are your neighborhoods, to the counties, to the state convention. You guys built the planks of the Republican Party platform. So the platform is yours. It's not mine. I agree with it. And that's the way I am. So when I get endorsements, they're conservative endorsements. They're fiscally conservative and they're socially conservative. So when you send me back, I'll do the same thing. I'll make you proud. I'll vote fiscally conservative, and I'll vote socially conservative. Thank you.
Mr. Risse, we'll begin. You will have the opportunity to answer the first question first. Since Texas is a border state and the primary location for illegal immigrants to enter America, what specifically will you do to fight illegal immigration?
Okay. We've got a pretty strong border patrol. The walls are going up, but I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to take it to the 2+ million. That's a conservative estimate. I get these from the computer, then I drum them up in my head. 2+ million just in Texas that are entrenched, and they've taken roots, and there's no more fear. So they're just really relaxed here. So I'm going to be the catalyst to go to Austin and stir things up. Well, I brought a visual aid with me. We're going to look at it from a different viewpoint. Those who are entrenched here, enjoying our benefits in our country, they're not vested, paying taxes, they're doing nothing. They perceive us, I'll get there, I'm an old school teacher, visual aid. They perceive us as marshmallows, soft and almost as sweet. And I'm going to go down there, actually I'm doing it right now, and I'm going to take care of business because they are draining us for about these are the estimates I get from the Homeland Security website, between 50 and 85, help me out, $1 billion a year. And we're searching for money, and we're searching for money and having to meet budgets for schools and hospitals and wondering where the next payments are going to come from. No, we're going to do it humanely, because I'm a humane guy. I have no vendetta. My wife was Mexican. She came up here illegally, and I didn't know her then, but through the process of about 7 years and lots of money, she became a U.S. citizen. I'm very proud of her. And so, this is what we're looking at. I don't want these people to get too comfortable, because they're draining. We can't afford it anymore. We can't afford to house them and to medicate them and to school them and all that goes with it, all the different categories of them. And so what I want Governor Abbott to do, okay, is give an edict. Remember that old word, edict? I'm not afraid of it. It's our country, E-D-I-C-T. I was so proud of President Trump when he said, you 6 nations are not coming here for the time being. I go, yes, we can dictate what happens. And I want to give them a 90-day grace period to get their things in order and return. My wife says, don't use the word go back. I said, okay, baby, I'll soften that word a little bit. Return to your country of origin and come back legally. We will welcome you with open arms. Everything short of red carpet, balloons, and chocolate. You're welcome back in our country because we'd love to have you. But you're going to come legally. And we're going to do the right thing. Thank you.
Mr. Largent.
So I support closing our borders any way we deem necessary, whether it's a wall, whether it's infrared technology, more border agents, whatever we need to do to close off immigration, that's what we need to do. The other thing that we need to do that I don't think we enforce, and we certainly don't do enough, we need to use the E-Verify system. I mean, most of these folks are coming over here for jobs because they get to work, and they have better paying jobs here than they do back where they come from. So we need to use E-Verify, make sure that anyone who gets a paycheck in Texas has gone through the E-Verify program and is legal. They're legally in our country. If they're not, we need to have a system where the only way we're going to cut this off is if we start having heavy fines for companies and businesses who hire illegal aliens. If we will do that, we will dramatically cut the number of people who cross our borders, and we will deport those who should not be here in the first place.
Mr. Lane.
On the borders, we spent $800 million last session to shore up the borders. And that's sending more DPS down to the border, just like it did last session, another $800 million. But what we really need from the federal government is the wall. and you liken it to a water leak in your house. You don't keep the water leak going and fix the things inside while the water's coming in. You got to turn the water off. You got to shut it down, and then you start fixing your house. And that's what we have to do. We have to stop the magnets. In-state tuition, we fight against that every session. Shouldn't have in-state tuition for illegal aliens. Driver's licenses, we're fighting that with the liberals and the Democrats. They want illegal aliens to have driver's licenses. So we stop the magnets. We do use E-Verify, but the biggest thing is we need Trump to shut the border down. Then we can start cleaning up what we need to do, because our county hospitals, our schools, our jails, they depend on it. 33% illegal aliens in our jails. That's our tax money being spent on people that should not be here. Also, voted co-authored Sanctuary Cities bill. Sanctuary City, we should not have any city in the state of Texas and that has to go through the courts. So every conservative piece of legislation that has anything to do with being conservative, if you notice, goes to the courts. So hopefully when you guys vote for your judges, you vote for conservative judges. So when we make legislation that you guys want, we can get it passed. Sanctuary City was a big bill session, and the Schaefer Amendment was huge. And it's got to stop. It's bleeding Texas from all over. Thank you.
Sort of a follow-up on the immigration, and some of this has been touched on. Two items. What are your thoughts toward sanctuary cities and illegal immigrants being allowed in-state college tuition rates? Mr. Largent.
Well, first of all, let me say that I certainly agree with the wall where it's needed. I was talking with an actual border agent just yesterday, in fact. They worked down on the border. And there are places on our Texas border where a wall would not be practical. They have sheer cliffs, they've got a river. You know, if you go over into New Mexico and Arizona, immigrants can just walk across somebody's yard, basically, and they're in the United States. So certainly the wall is probably not practical everywhere along our border. Absolutely opposed to sanctuary cities. If someone is found doing something illegal anywhere in our state, they should be deported. Simple as that. I mean, I certainly would not support any sanctuary city. So that's what we need to do to take care of that. As far as in-state tuition, that's an issue that Governor Perry actually passed, if I remember correctly, to allow students who had been here their entire life to have in-state tuition. You know, they came here under no fault of their own. They were brought here by their parents when they were young children. They went through our school systems, and you know, for all intents and purposes, they're certainly one of our citizens. So that's an issue that I think needs to be addressed. But you know, I've been in public education for 30 years, and we see those babies come to our front door, and we educate them. An educated populace is better for all of us, whether they're legal or illegal. We don't have a choice to ask them where they're from when they walk to our door at the public schools. We've been told we must educate them, and we do. And so that issue has been discussed in the past, and that's where we stand on that.
I already touched on sanctuary cities, so you guys know where I stand on that. Also touched on in-state tuition for illegal aliens. And that's exactly what it means for illegal aliens. If people don't live here and they still get in-state tuition, that's still our tax money. If they're still illegal, it's still our tax money here. And that's part of the magnets that I'm saying we need to turn off. Because we can say, well, we'll take this one, but then we'll take this one over here, we'll take this one over here. Before you know it, we've got everybody living here that's illegal aliens again. We're paying for it, and it needs to stop, and we need to shut it down. And some people don't understand that, but we've got to get Texas back the way it is, and people need to come over here legally and to do it legally. And when you come over here and you're illegal, you know you're illegal. So just by the mere fact of being here, you're an illegal alien. And now you want to get more benefits. I say no, period.
Mr. Risse?
Well, I can stand too. Just the other day, I was refereeing basketball, and the ball went somewhere on the side of the stands were up there, and I kind of kicked it against the wall, and I said, "You don't think I can bend over?" Anyway, what in our Constitution gives anybody rights to go to college? You know, I served my country for 20 years, and I did get the GI Bill. Thank God for that. But I still had 6 kids to feed. So what did I do? I went and refereed sports to make ends meet. I'm not for giving anybody. I'm for the dreamers, though, by the way, those people who have stayed in the country and they've learned English, they're law-abiding, and they're all this good stuff. And I'm for them. I'm rooting for them. But I'm not going to pay for your college. I didn't get it, unless I served my country. Okay? And I'm not a mean guy, but you're not going to get it. So you can get work study, you can get grants, you can work your way through, you can get scholarships. There's lots of ways to get money for college that's not guaranteed in our Constitution. It's burying us. Be thankful that you're here, right? And get good grades and get a Pell Grant. Hello? They still give them out. Yeah, what was the other thing, sanctuary cities? Okay. That appalls me. We got men and women in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places in the world risking their lives, and some of them coming back in body bags. And we got some people harboring illegals in their city. United States of America. If I get in there, I'm going to cause a stir that you've never seen before. I hate it. I'm a loving guy, but I hate it. But we got to face facts. And that's where I stand with that. Thank you.
Mr. Lang, you'll be the first responder on this question. What will you do to fix the school funding problems? And this dates all the way back to the origins of Robin Hood with Democratic Governor Mark White. But in fixing a school funding problem, where will the money come from? Would you support a state income tax to fund education?
First of all, no, I will not support a state income tax for anything. When Robin Hood came into effect, Ann Richards, it was wrong then, it's wrong now. And Robin Hood needs to be replaced, and the state needs to pay for Robin Hood. Now, school finance. We have somebody that's been up here in school finance for a long time. I've studied it for the last 2 years. Doesn't make me an expert by any means, but school finance, the state needs to pay a certain amount. When I talk to my administrators, nobody knows what that amount is. So sooner or later, we're going to have to redo, I think, all of school finance. And what that means is we already have good schools, good teachers, and in our district, I have about 40 school districts. 17 graduate at 100%. If you average the entire school districts, it's almost 96% graduation rate. So our teachers are doing a great job, and the money's there. I think we have enough money. We just need to switch it back from the administration level to the teacher in the classroom level. Now, part of that is brought on by unfunded state mandates for testing and everything else. Well, I had 2 bills. One was for testing, to take those unfunded mandates away. And they just sat in committee. The leadership said, no, we're not going to do it. Administrators, they were absent. 27 unfunded mandates by TASB, Texas Association of School Boards. They could pick and choose whatever one they wanted. Absent. That bill went nowhere. So when people talk about unfunded mandates, state mandates, but they really don't want to get rid of them, something's wrong. That means that we spend almost 66% for non-teaching staff and maybe 44, 48% in the classroom. So what we need to do is lower that 66% and raise the other percentage up. Not keep raising this percentage up, because we need to get rid of the unfunded mandates that, guess what, some people don't want to get rid of. So you're kind of caught in a conundrum with the associations. But when it comes back to it, whose money is it? It's your money. It's my money. I think we have enough funding for the schools. We just need to put it in the right place. And that's back in the classroom.
Mr. Risse?
Okay, it's 2 minutes, right? 3. Welcome. This is so different. Dr. Largent can verify this. They laughed at me in Brownwood about a week ago. We are taking less and less as the years go by, responsibility away from the parent. When I was a kid, the poorest of the poor, they brought $1.25 on Mondays. The teacher didn't say, I want $2 because I'm going to make change for you. You bring $1.25, and every kid, I don't care what level you were, they came up with the money to pay for their lunches. And somebody said, oh, wait, you got to be kidding me. No, I'm not kidding you. That would defray expenses right there. I promise you that. Somebody said, well, the kids, what are they going to do? Well, maybe you can give up your snuff, and your tobacco, and your cigarettes, and your beer, and your lottery tickets, and your cable TV, and your Netflix. Amen. No, I'm serious. We're taking less and less. No, we're going to give you the ACE program too, and we're going to take your kids for about 10.5 hours a day, and then so the parents can do whatever. Now, I realize there's a small percent that may be benefiting, but it's costly, my friends. These government programs in our schools are very costly. And I'm going to hit another area that would help defray without tapping into taxes, more taxes. If your child wants to play sports, it's a privilege, it's a wonderful thing. I played sports, I coach sports, I referee sports, I kind of like it. It's $75 per child per sport with a cap, understand that, at $150. In Minnesota, they pay $400 a sport. So I'm not going to make a comparison. I'm just saying that other places, can you imagine the stipends that coaches get? And the travel expenses, and the equipment, and the officials' fees? I'm not saying it would cover the whole thing, but it would tap into it. So we got to look within. We got to put the brunt on family to support the kids. We already give them free education. You can come to our building, you get your air conditioning, you get your computer, you get your books, you get your instruction, you get your ride, you get your breakfast. We burpee at 9:30. No, we're spoiled rotten. I had a kid in Blanket, Texas, and this is kind of a funny story because I don't mind a little humor, but I had about 56, I had the dairy road, I had lots of kids on my bus. When I coached and taught, I also drove the bus. And I had, like I said, a bus full of kids, and I went like 6 feet above for me to Mr. Lang, away from where he was standing at the curb. And he looked up at me, he says, you picked me up, let me see, there, not here, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I says, get on the bus, come on, let's go to school. We're spoiled rotten. I lived in the hard times. My parents grew up in the hard times. We were frugal. I hate debt. I hate it. We got to live our lives, and everything, thank you.
So funding for schools, the first thing we need to do to fund schools, we need to cut, okay? So let's cut the over $1 billion we've spent on a multiple choice test for kids. How about let's start by cutting? We spent $43 million last year on test booklets, bubble tests for our kids. That's ridiculous. So let's start by cutting. The second thing we need to do, and the state has played this trick on local taxpayers. They have gone from paying 67% of the cost of public education back about 15 years ago to now the newest budget pays 38% of public education coming from the state. So what does that mean? That means local property owners are having to pick up the difference. So you raise property taxes to make up the difference, and then they blame us at the local level for raising your taxes. It's a shell game they're playing with us, folks. So number one, cut the unfunded mandates, cut out testing except what is required by federal law. That would be the first bill I would write. Only test what is required by federal law. Thank you. Cut out the millions we're spending on this appraisal system. We're trying to determine if a third grader is career and college ready. That's what our appraisal system is trying to do. That is ridiculous. How about let's decide if a third grader can read on third grade level? Let's try that for a while. So cut out the nonsense. Now I'm going to be honest with you. Mike says he had an unfunded mandate bill. That wasn't Mike's bill. Mike put his name on somebody else's bill. I'm in the largest school district in Mike's district. Mike never came to me to discuss any unfunded mandate bill, not once. We never had a discussion. He never said, what do you think about this? You would think if you're really worried about cutting unfunded mandates for your school, you would go to your school district, that's the largest one in your district, and ask a few questions. So when we talk about the unfunded mandates, and the last thing I will see, and I've heard Mike say this several times, the school board was against it, the administrators were against it. The administrators and school board don't vote. There's 150 guys that get to vote. If they wanted to pass it, they would have voted for it. So you want to fix school finance? Cut unfunded mandates, cut the ridiculous testing and appraisal system that we have, let the state pick up its fair share of the cost, and let locals do what we know how to do, and let teachers teach. How about we do that? Let's come up with a curriculum that says, here's what a second grader needs to know when they leave second grade, and let our professional educators teach. And by the way, about 2% of a budget goes to administrators, and about 3% of the budget goes to extracurricular activities. So those two areas are not killing our budgets. But we do have to have people in charge. We do have to have principals and assistant principals and directors of curriculum to do all of these nonsense unfunded mandates that have been sent our way. So if you can cut a few of those out, we might can cut back on that even more, so it's less than 2%. But that's not hurting us. Thank you.
Yes. 1 minute.
It's kind of funny, it must have slipped your memory, but I sat in your office, and you had another gentleman with you, and I went over the 27 unfunded mandates on a page, and I think you picked out 2 of them maybe, but anyway, I was there. But when you get down to talk about administrators and Texas Association of Administrators and TASB, they're powerful organizations. Most of them are funded by you, the taxpayer, that go around me trying to vote for fiscally responsible things. So what happens is you get these associations all wrapped up with the representatives, and they don't vote the way they're supposed to, and they don't vote their district because they're kowtowing down to associations that are taxpayer funded by you and are liberal and trying to circumvent the system. And that's why we have this runaway mandate system that's been here for 20-something years. And then they say to the legislature, we got unfunded mandates. And I have a bill that I put my name on because I agree with it for unfunded mandates. Dr. Largent's absent.
Just to clarify, we had a discussion about unfunded mandates after the session was over. It doesn't do much good to talk about unfunded mandates when the session is over. This happened like in August. Thank you.
Mr. Risse, you'll be the first to respond to this. When do you believe human life begins, and upon what do you base that belief?
I'm sorry, one more time, please. I'm sorry.
When do you believe human life begins, and upon what do you base that
Well,
belief?
that's a good one. Conception. I'm going to make it real easy on you. Conception. I base it on we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and life is ordained of God. You see, man thinks he's... it's too easy, but biblically, and to me, I'm going to say something that's going to shock you when I hear the Democrats speak and whatever. If a person believes in abortion, I don't think they're even civilized. I still love them. I love people. But boy, oh boy. And they hide behind these slogans or these, help me out, what's pro-life and pro-choice? What are those called? Slogans, right? They hide behind them. Well, I'm pro-life. Yeah, but what? I'm pro-choice. Yeah, but what are you actually doing? What is that doctor doing? Can you explain that to me? Are you going, into a woman's womb and tearing out a beautiful piece of God's creation and throwing it in the disposal? Then you're not civilized. I mean that with all my heart. And it riles me up like nothing else. And if I got a little bit more time, and I wasn't even a Christian at the time. I was in Germany, Sembach Air Force Base, Germany. I remember it like it was yesterday morning, every step of the way. There was a friend of ours that we played on the football team over there. And we were just talking on the sidewalk, and we said, "Where's old such and such?" "Oh, she went to New Jersey," from Germany. I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, she went to have an abortion." This was 1973. And I said, "What's that?" And he explained to me, and I stopped in my tracks. Well, Gregory, stopped in my tracks. I said, "What? That doesn't make any sense at all." So anyway, that's the answer to that question.
Largent.
Yes, I am pro-life. I am endorsed by the Texas Alliance for Life, and I believe that we should do everything that we can to limit the number of abortions that happen in Texas. Some of the descriptions of these abortions are barbaric, and we certainly need to do everything that we can to limit the abortions in Texas while coming up with bills that will withstand a federal court challenge. That's one of the issues that we deal with. Texas has banned abortion after 20 weeks. We have included the parental consent law where a minor can't go in and have an abortion. We have defunded Planned Parenthood 90%. The other 10% would have to come from a federal law. So we've done everything. We've done some things to try to limit abortion while at the same time holding up in federal courts. But I am pro-life, and I am endorsed by one of the premier pro-life groups in Texas.
Mr. Largent, specifically the question was, when do you believe human life begins?
Human life begins at conception.
Thank you. Mr. Lane?
Human life begins at conception, and just like I put my name on the bill, I don't know where this "we" comes from. That you kept saying we did this, we did that. I guess the state of Texas, their representatives that go down there did that. But I voted to abolish abortion. Period. Some people want to get to that little edge and say, well, you know what, if we do this, the courts are going to take it, and then we're going to get a big court battle, blah, blah, blah. The courts are going to do this, the courts are going to do that. Folks, we have to do that. We have to send it to the courts. Because that's the only way we're going to stop it. Period. So, Texas Right to Life has endorsed me. I'm a Right to Life champion. And begins at conception and natural death. So this session, we did do a lot of good things. And hopefully next session, we will be able to abolish abortion and send it back to the courts. But guess what's coming? We have President Trump. And we're going to have new people pretty soon on that court. And when we send on the court for the judges, they're going to send it back to the states because we have states' rights. And Trump believes in that. When it comes back to the state, you'll see all the reps that want to abolish abortion, and then you see all the reps that want to just go to that line where you have to send it back to the courts. I'm going to be the one standing on the line to abolish abortion. Thank you.
Mr. Largent, you'll be the first responder. What specific legislation would you propose to stop abortions in Texas? And do you support the full and complete abolishment of abortion?
Well, again, we can support abolishing abortion, and everybody wants to abolish abortion. The problem is that if you pass a bill in Texas that abolishes abortion, it will be thrown out in federal courts. The other part of that, hello, am I on? The other part of that is when a court case like this is thrown out of federal courts, the state of Texas taxpayers have to pay the other side's court fees, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. So there have been other states who have tried to assert states' rights on issues like this, and they're thrown out of court immediately. And the state taxpayers end up having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I am all for looking for bills that would limit abortion in Texas and stand up to constitutional fights. So that would be my approach, is I would work with constitutional scholars, I would work with the Texas Alliance for Life, other groups that are against abortion, and come up with bills that would limit the number of abortions in Texas.
Mr. Risse.
Well, I love the last couple of Supreme Court nominees. These people, see, it might be a slow process, but it's steady. I think it's, I'm showing my ignorance. The last two, Clarence Thomas and then the more Gorbachev. Help me out, I'm sorry. Yes. Fine men that were handpicked, and I believe God ordained. So we're working behind the scenes, we're working with this, and eventually we're going to overturn Roe and Wade. And that'd be a good thing. See, be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. I would like to abolish it tomorrow. I'd like to board up every abortion hellhole in Texas tonight. You know I would. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And I believe we can pray. Let me tell you a little bit about the Clintons. When I was in church during the election of last year, and I'm not a big sensational guy, but I was right before the election, and I said, Lord God, can we get believers throughout this whole land in a clean sweep of the Clintons away from Washington? I'm just one man, and I was praying that the whole nation would, and of course it came to pass, with all of us getting them out. But with them gone, it's a good thing. And I think the same thing on this abortion issue. We need to take it to the Lord and say, Lord God, show these people what they're actually doing. Because yes, they have a law that allows it to happen, but it's getting less and less. I'd like to just curtail the whole thing and abolish it. That'd be great.
Mr. Lang, when it comes to the Second Amendment, do you believe in constitutional carry, and would you introduce legislation to make it the law of the land in Texas?
When it comes to the Second Amendment, I agree with the Second Amendment, and that is constitutional carry. I co-authored the Constitutional Amendment Bill and joint authored the Constitutional Amendment Bill. Both of those didn't make it out of Homeland Security Committee because of the weak leadership that we had. We will have new leadership. Hopefully, it'll be more conservative, and we can get constitutional carry back onto the House floor for a vote. And yes, I do support constitutional carry, the Second Amendment.
Mr. Risse.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Lang, because if he didn't get up, I was going to sit there, and I'm not as effective sitting behind that table. You know, I got a letter in the mail, about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, and it was the Constitutional. There's so many organizations out there, and once you put your name in the hat for this office, you get all the mail, and fill out this and fill out that, and which is okay. And I noticed one of the questions was constitutional carry anywhere, everywhere. Do you support it? Check yes, check no. I said, wait a minute. when the framers of the Constitution wrote this, they didn't throw wisdom to the wind. And I wanted to call this guy, if there was a number I would have called him and said, if you have a buddy in prison, because who knows, we could have a buddy in prison, are you going to tote your pistol in there and say, constitutional carry, I got the right to carry this weapon wherever, anywhere? Huh? No, we have wisdom. If you're selected for jury duty, you say, I got constitutional carry anywhere, everywhere. I know what anywhere, anywhere means. It doesn't mean you can come to a jury duty and tote your pistol. I have a pistol, not on me, but I have one at home. My wife is having our little grandbaby, when we raise our little grandbaby, and I have a pistol, I have a shotgun, I do the little bird hunting, and I believe in the Second Amendment all the way, but just using wisdom with it. I have respect for it. Somebody says gun-free zone. If I'm going to go to Social Security office and it says gun-free zone, I'm not going to bring my pistol. So just using good, solid wisdom on this thing of the Second Amendment is going to get us a long way. Thank you.
Yeah, regarding constitutional carry, first of all, I'm a lifelong hunter, grew up hunting and fishing, lifelong gun owner. Have the highest rating from the NRA. So I am all about law-abiding, mentally stable people having a gun to protect their family and their property. I'm absolutely a supporter of that. I've never heard Mike define what he means by constitutional carry, because I've seen several definitions, and some of them are pretty much no gun-free zones. Carry a gun anywhere you want. I think surely a man that's been in law enforcement for 30 years is not for that. He is not for carrying a 12 gauge into a courtroom while your brother is on trial for murder. I can't imagine he would be for that. So I've never heard him define what he means by constitutional carry. But what I will say is I am all for law-abiding, mentally stable people having guns to protect themselves and their family. I will be happy to look at any legislation, look at all the pros and cons, hear all the details about any law that would allow people to carry more places, etc. But that's my stance on that at this point.
Well, I believe in the Second Amendment. I'm endorsed by the NRA and 3 other major gun groups because of my stance on constitutional carry. Constitutional carry means you can carry. If you have private property, or I'm on my private property, and I don't want, if I'm a business, I don't want somebody in my store carrying, that's your personal right to do that. So when it comes to constitutional carry, and thank you for that 30 years in law enforcement, because what I really found out in law enforcement is, guess what, folks? The bad guys have the guns, period. Whether you're unstable, not stable, a felon, anything like that. And guess who doesn't have the guns? Everybody else that has to jump through hoops. And the Second Amendment's not to go hunting or to carry at your house or to make you feel good. It's to have in case our government comes for us. Period. So that's the constitutional carry. So law enforcement is not taken very seriously. I want my family protected. I want you protected because it's your constitutional right, period.
We still didn't have Mike answer the question, though. You didn't answer the question. You're going to protect your family. Do you really believe, in front of all these people here, you're really telling me you want a guy to walk into a courtroom with a 12-gauge shotgun when his brother's on trial for murder? Do you think that's what constitutional carry means? Because that's what you just said. You said there should be no limits. I mean, tell me, is there such thing as a gun-free zone in your definition of constitutional carry? That's the question.
Mr. Largent, you're not the moderator.
I just want Mr. Wayne to answer the question.
Mr. Risse, you get this question first. Should teachers and administrators be allowed to conceal and carry in schools to protect our children from would-be attackers? Why or why not?
Yes, they should. I wish I was from Granbury. I'm not dodging your question. Absolutely. Like what I've just stated, it's the crazy people that have guns. They have means to go into a school. We saw that in Florida, sadly, a day or two ago, right? And I think it was Brooksmith. I think Brooksmith has a marquee. Brooksmith is about 8 or 10 miles from Brownwood. And it says, we are all armed and we carry. And so that's going to be a deterrent for anybody that wants to come over there. No, I don't know, maybe it's just, I don't know. I didn't go over there and question anybody or look under anybody's drawers or anything else, but you know what I mean? I didn't, you know. But I believe, to answer your question, very honest question, I believe that administrators and certain teachers, unbeknownst, there's a word, unbeknownst to anybody, who's got it? Because that's been the most effective way to do it. And they're trained, and they're armed, and they're going to deal with situations that come up.
Mr. Largent?
You know, we have laws on the books now that allow local school districts, local elected officials to determine if they want to have their staff armed. It's called the Marshall Program. It's on the books now. Several schools have done that. Several schools have armed police officers on their campuses now. They have resource officers, they have constables, they have policemen, and some schools have taken the law and put in a Marshall Program that does allow their staff to carry weapons, and I'm certainly in favor of that.
I'm in favor of school districts having teachers or administrators carry guns. Times have changed. It changed when I was in law enforcement. And the first responder in Fort Worth, we started doing that in the 80s. So what happened is law enforcement used to surround a place and the shootings would continue or you'd have hostages. That all changed in the 1990s, early 2000s. And I think it's time that the schools change too. And I think the teachers and administrators need to carry for liability reasons. I think they do need to be trained. But I don't know if we have to do it on a state level. I would recommend it on a state level. But you guys are on the local level, and you guys should put your administrators, your superintendents, and your school boards on a hot seat to say, hey, what are you guys going to do to protect our kids?
Mr. Largent, you get the first response on this one. What specific measures and legislation can the Texas legislature implement to protect religious liberty from the overreaching courts?
Let's read that, Chris?
Yes, sir. What specific measures and legislation can the Texas legislature implement to protect religious liberty from the overreaching courts?
Well, I don't know about most schools, but I know in Granbury we have lots of religious liberty in Granbury ISD. We have kids who bring Bibles to school every day. They read anytime they want to. We have religious clubs. We have Students for Christ, Fellowships for Christ. We have See You Around the Pole. We have lots of religious activities. So I don't know what limits we have right now other than getting on the PA system and having everyone say a prayer every morning, which we don't do. And that's a federal law, of course. But, you know, sometimes if you get into that, it's okay if we're saying the prayer for your religion, but you may not want the prayer for someone else's religion or even their denomination. So, you know, despite the fact that we get God back in our classrooms, you come to Granbury ISD, God is alive and well in our classrooms. Go talk to our teachers, most of whom are very active members of their church, most of whom role model for their kids every day the goodness of Christ. And so I don't know what other legislation we need other than what we have now, and we are very open with allowing those freedoms in our school at least, and so I don't know why others wouldn't do that.
What was the question again?
What specific measures and legislation can the Texas legislature implement to protect religious liberty from the overreaching courts?
Okay. That's good about Granbury, I'm glad to hear, but it's not just about schools. And the legislature isn't just about schools. The legislature has to take into account everything. From county clerks, having to deal with one man, one woman marriage, which most of you here know, in our county, we had that problem with religious liberties and persons' beliefs. We've had it across the nation with bakeries. Folks, whether you like it or not, Christians are being persecuted as it is today here in the United States. You can see it in the media. You can see it in our media in Hood County. You can see it all across the nation and all across the state. And just go back, it's not just religious liberties. It's about truth. It's about where you stand. You say that oath to God. You stand before God, and you're going to say that, oh, well, wait, my county judge or my county commissioner said we're going to get sued because we're not standing for one man, one woman. Or what about the transgender issue? There's two genders, people, male and female. So when it comes down to liberties, that's your Christian liberties. That is your Christian values. And you can say all you want, whether they're under attack or not, but they are. They're under attack in the schools with LGBT and all the other groups, and they're stripping away your Christian rights. And when it comes to religious liberty, that's what the Constitution and that's what we're based on here in the United States, Judeo-Christian values. And that's what we need to adhere to. That's what we need to get back to. And hopefully, you guys will vote for somebody that'll go down there and stand like I did and vote for me again when I go down there and not be worried about what the courts are going to say or what the courts are going to do. Because if we don't stand now, we're going to lose Texas. This is the Republican Party platform, pure and simple. And this is the Republican Party primary. What I hear up here are liberal things that Democrats would say. This is the Republican Party. You guys,
I have a response to Risse after Mr. Risse.
Okay. Someday, if you get a little time, I want you to Google Madeline Murray O'Hara. No, I'm serious. Look at her demise. Look at the end of her life. And she was kind of, they don't know, but she was murdered and dismembered and left out in the prairie south of San Antonio somewhere. For years, didn't even know about her little bones dried up. And God is still on the throne. So, God's not going to be defeated in any of it. For many years I taught, and kids would come to me and say, Mr. Risse, Coach Risse would probably call me at the time, they'd say, my mother's in the hospital with a heart attack. Would you please pray for her? I said, certainly. And all the kids would say, is that good with y'all? Because I respect people. And they go, sure. I've never heard anybody say, no, not me. No, never heard it. Of course, this is Central Texas. If you go to Boston, you might hear a different thing. And the other day, talking about religious liberties, I kind of eased over after a basketball game I refereed. It was the boys or girls? It was the boys' game. And they were saying the Lord's Prayer. I think it was Cross Plains and Panther Creek. And so they held hands at the middle of the court there, and they said the Lord's Prayer. And I kind of eased over. I couldn't help it. And I wanted to be a small part of that. I put my hand on some boy's shoulder. When we took out prayer in the scriptures from the school, the Bible says the entrance of thy words, help me out, giveth light. So the light, for all intents and purposes, is gone, except there are believers still in the school. And so what happened is we got a floodgate of Harry Potter and sorcery and witchcraft. When I was at Peyton Rock, I couldn't get when I taught reading to kids, I said, let's get a book. I had to sift through anywhere from 3 to 5 books before I could find a book that was decent that didn't have sorcery and witchcraft in it. You know, Jack is in a jail going up the hill with a pail of water. You can't find them hardly anymore. So we've got to be diligent and vigilant about that. And in my thing, I've never seen it from anybody else. I say we're going to tastefully display the 10 Commandments. Yeah. Who has the 10 Commandments ever heard? Nobody. So anyway, there's measures I want to take with public schools. And thank God for that.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that if you look at plank number 132 of the Republican platform, it says, we strongly oppose lionizing any of the world's great religious groups and demonizing another, so as much as it discriminates one over another. So, you know, it's okay when the religious is what we believe in. But what happens when somebody gets elected that believes in a religion we don't believe in, and they want to start addressing their religious rights as well? That's the concern I have.
Mr. Lang, you will be the first responder here. If a boy feels like a girl or identifies as a girl, or if a girl identifies as a boy, should boys and girls be allowed to shower and use the same restrooms together? Why or why not?
No. And it's a shame you're even asking that question. But we've come to that, and some people say, oh no, we'll never have that, we'll never have that. Well, it's being talked about, and it's being pushed. And that's what I'm saying. Liberal values are being pushed, and the conservatives have been asleep. It is time for the conservatives to wake up. It is time for the conservatives to stand up. And about the platform, plank 132, not forcing any religion on anybody. Standing up for the religion I have. And you say, well, what if it's not somebody that is elected and somebody else has a different religion? They can stand up for their religion and be voted in or not voted in. I'm standing up for my religion as a Christian male, one gender. Also, when you're on the House floor, you look up at the dais, it says, in God we trust. Not Allah, not anybody else, but in God we trust.
Mr. Risse?
Well, this is going to be the shortest answer of the night, and I'm not going to stand up over my dead body.
Largent?
I have never, and I would never, allow boys and girls to dress together, go to the restroom together, or shower together. I agree with Mike when he said it's embarrassing that we're even having to answer this question. Never would support that, never have supported it. It's ridiculous.
Mr. Risse, your first responder. Will you support the Republican caucus nominee for Speaker of the House?
Absolutely.
Mr. Largent?
Yeah, let me address this because I have a feeling that question was directed at me.
No, sir, it's directed at all three of these. I didn't ever say it at the outset. These questions came from public, some through social media, some from Republican officials, but it's just a broad spectrum of questions and broad spectrum of responses. Okay.
Happy to answer. The answer is, I'm sure I will. But the truth is this. I'm not going to pledge my allegiance to any man that I've never met, never spoken to, don't know how they feel about issues that are important to me. This is America. This is Texas. And I don't know many of you out in the audience who would pledge your allegiance to somebody you've never spoken to. Will the next Speaker of the House be a Republican? 100%. Will I support whoever comes out of our caucus? 100%. Thank you.
Yes, I signed the pledge. I support the Republican caucus. You don't support somebody blindly, but what happens is we have two running. There's probably going to be 4 or 5 that will end up running at least. And you sit in a room, and you vote, and you talk to them, and you listen some more, and you talk to them. You see where they're standing. You see where they're from. You see how they voted. You see a lot already. If somebody's running, for example, Phil King's running. I just picked one of the two. Before you come in, you should know about Phil King. You should know where Phil King stands. You should know what bills he's offering. So, as a candidate, you have a responsibility to find out who these people are before you vote. So when you do something blindly, I'm not going to do anything blindly, but I'm going to know the person that I'm voting for. And once that person gets voted through the system we have in the caucus, then you go to the floor. I say voted, selected. Then you go to the floor and you cast your vote for your district. And yes, it will be a Republican, because the last one we had said he was a Republican, but basically was elected by more Democrats than Republicans. So that's a problem we run into. And I hope it's not a problem again. Thank you.
Mr. Largent, will you support Governor Greg Abbott's tax plan to limit local government's property tax growth at 2.5% and force an election for rates increases higher than that, with 2/3 of voter approval needed? And why or why not?
Yeah, people are kind of grazing over what the governor actually said. The first thing the governor said was, until we fix school finance, we can't even talk about a tax cap. I absolutely agree with that. The second thing the governor said was, we must end unfunded mandates from the legislature. If we will do that, I agree with the governor. When you start talking about tax caps, you're talking about tying the hands of our elected officials at the local level. I believe that if you do the first two things that I just said, you won't need a tax cap. Local people know their local leaders. They elect them to represent them at the county and city levels and school boards. And if those folks raise taxes more than they should, we'll vote them out of office the next time. That's what the democratic process is about. So I'm not a big fan of the tax caps because I think it ties the hands of our local leaders. But I would certainly think if we do the first things that the governor said we need to do, we won't need the tax caps, to be perfectly honest with you.
I agree, and I've been fighting to get rid of unfunded mandates, so I do agree on that. Tax cap, yes, I agree. Rollback election, yes, I agree. What we have, folks, is the state of Texas is number 2 in local tax debt per capita to California. We're number 2 overall to New York. The state, unlike the federal government, can't print money. So we have a finite budget that we constitutionally, thank goodness, have to budget every biennium. So yes, I think there needs to be a tax cap, because when you have a commissioner in there for 4 years and a county judge in there for 4 years, how high can your taxes go up before you guys are paying too much? As far as the rest of Governor Abbott's plan, because it goes on quite a bit, it does have an exemption in there for teacher pay, for law enforcement, and for critical infrastructure. And it can't go above population plus inflation, which is about 4.4% maybe. So you can bump that 2.5% cap up to population plus inflation, which is what some of the Republicans, myself included, wanted to do this session is put the state under a population plus inflation cap, so we couldn't spend more money. Again, being the second most fiscally conservative, that's what I would do with our money, because it's our money and it's being spent. Whether it's local or state, it still comes out of your pocket.
Mr. Risse.
Well, we all know we love to drive on nice highways. We love law enforcement. We love when our house goes on fire, the firemen come over there. We love the entities that we have, and the money's got to come from somewhere. And the 2.5 thing, if they say this is going to be it, is a good thing. I've never had a problem paying taxes. And I hate to bring up Minnesota, but sometimes it's good for comparison. Up there, they have a state income tax. It's about 3 or 4%. So if you make, if you make $1,000, it's about $40 comes out, so they can pay for all those things because this money's got to come from somewhere, and I realize that. So I have zero problem with 2.5 tax leveling off right there. None at all. Thank you.
Mr. Lane, should people on welfare be drug tested? Why or why not?
Yes, that'd be a great concept. It's going to cost money, so what we're going to have to do is figure out how much we're spending on welfare versus how much it is to test. I think if you test able, working people without kids on drug tests, as soon as we stop incentivizing people not to work, then guess what? We save money, they get a job, they're productive members of society. So yes, I would be in favor of drug testing. And also, I'd be in favor of drug testing the elected officials too.
Mr. Risse.
Well, I'm not speaking for anybody. All three would say yes. You're going to get a benefit from the government, and you're going to be on drugs. Well, certainly we're yes. The answer is yes. And how is that going to be offsetting? Because it'll be eventually, in the long run, it's going to be to our benefit to have these people tested, and that's going to do one of two things. They're either going to get clean, which is a good thing, right? We take the side of hope. They're going to sit there and say, I'm going to use this drug, or I'm going to go get benefits. So that's a good thing that they're confronted with. They have to make a decision. But if they have a dirty UA, they're not going to get the benefit. So I'm all for testing for those benefits. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of subjecting anyone who gets welfare to drug tests if we think they need to be drug tested. I'm also in favor of able-bodied people that get a welfare check doing something to get that check. So they can wash police cars, and they can pick up trash on the side of the road, and they can do something rather than sit there and get a handout. So I'm absolutely in favor of some welfare reform, having people who are able-bodied actually do something for the benefit they get from our taxpayers.
Okay, this is our last question, and this is one that we have asked at all of our forums, the county commissioners, county judges, forums, and so have you read the Texas Republican Party platform, and do you believe and support its principles and tenets? Why or why not?
Well, I read it word for word, and I smiled with every bit of it because of the thing about men and women being married, one man and one woman, because of the sanctity of life, because male and female created in them. That's our platform. That's what we stand on. Yeah, I read every word of it, and I said, I can agree with this. So, yeah, to answer your question, that's good. It's well written, and I believe it.
Yeah, let me clear that up, because I've been getting tortured for not supposedly signing the Republican platform. The truth of the matter is, to this day, I signed up on December 11th, the very last day you can sign up. To this day, I have never seen the survey that I supposedly was given. Haven't seen it, hadn't been emailed to me, No one's handed it to me. That's the God's honest truth. Haven't talked to anyone on the executive committee in our county. I did spend a long time going over all of the 266 planks of the Republican platform, and I think I found 13 total that I disagreed with, so that makes me about 95%. But there's, you know, I tell people this: would you rather me sign something and then not do what I signed, or would you rather me just tell you what I'm going to do and then do it? You know, Mike goes around saying he signed the platform. One of the platform planks says he's for local control. When you hear him talk, he says locals are out of control. We need the state to fix it. Mike signed the platform that said he's against unfunded mandates. He was for the largest unfunded mandate of the last session. Mike signed the platform that said he is against he's for the Tesla bill, where you can buy cars directly from the manufacturer. He told the Texas auto dealers he was against the Tesla bill. So again, we can go through. There are a few of the planks that I don't agree with. I like to elect my senators to Washington. Did you know that was one of the planks? That we're going to appoint, the Texas legislature gets to appoint our senators? I just disagree. I like to elect people who represent me. One of the planks is we're for vouchers. I've given lots of talks and written lots of articles about why I'm against vouchers. So I do not agree with that plank. So there are a few that I don't agree with. Most of them I do. So again, about 95% of the 266 planks of the Republican platform I agree with. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I think about these issues, and then I'm going to vote exactly like I told you. Thank you.
I did sign the platform. I did get a copy. If I didn't get a copy, I would have searched for a copy and made sure I was signed a copy. Because once again, this is the Republican Party primary. It's not the Democrat primary. It's not the independent primary. We're half as good, half as bad, 90% is good, 90% bad. You stand for an ideal, folks. And I've said it before. The ideal of the Republican platform is conservative. It's free market. Tesla, free market. Imagine that, free market principles. That's in the platform. A lot of things mentioned that were in the platform, I agree with. And why do I agree with it? Because I'm conservative. I'm a true conservative. And guess what? It's your platform. You guys worked for this platform. You put this platform together. It's your platform that I carry down to Austin because I believe in it too. I don't have to search for a copy. I've read it. I know it. If you have to search for a copy to sign it, but you've read it, that means you're not going to sign it. So that means something for me. That I'm going to go down there, I'm going to fight for your principles, what you want me to fight for, and what I did in the past. Thank you.
And as stated at the outset, each candidate will now have 5 minutes for closing remarks. And let's see, go back to our order. Mr. Largent, you're first.
Yeah, first, thanks for having me tonight. It's been a pleasure to be here and answer questions about these issues that I know are important to all of you. You know, I'm not a politician. I'm just a common man. I've been in rural Texas my entire life. Rural Texas is very important to me. Obviously, public education is very important to me. That was the impetus of me running for this race in the first place. There's no question about that. Mike and I disagree on some very key issues that I think are very important to the future of our state. And our public education system is under attack. Retirees' pensions are under attack. Law enforcement and fire department and other government officials' pensions are under attack. They want to get your money. They think they know better what to do with your money than you do. So I'm running for you guys. I'm running for rural Texas. We have issues that are different than the cities. You start consolidating our schools, which is one of the planks of the party. You start consolidating our rural schools, our towns go away. Our economy goes away. So yeah, I don't agree with that plank of the platform. Because I believe in rural Texas. We want jobs. We want great schools. We want great health care in rural Texas. We've got some regulations coming down from Austin that are going to put local hospitals out of business. You're going to have to send your child, your wife, 3 hours on a trip to Abilene or San Angelo or Dallas to have a baby because your local clinics and hospitals are not going to meet the regulations for rural health care. Look it up. It's there. So those are the things that I want to run for. My plan is to pair up our counties. We have 8 counties. Pair up our counties, work with local leaders, counties, cities, and schools, work with citizens from our communities, and find out what issues are important to us. What issues can we address? What are some solutions to take away some of these unfunded mandates that may not pertain to us? They may be good for Dallas, but they're not good for Eastland or Cisco. Take away some of those unfunded mandates. Allow our local leaders to run our cities, counties, and schools. Allow our educators to teach. Allow our county judges to build a budget that knows, because they know what it takes to provide police protection and fire protection and infrastructure for our counties and cities. So those are the things that are important to me. That's the plan that I have. I promise you that if you elect me, that's what I will do. And you will see me again. I will work with all of you. I will work with your local leaders. And we'll actually go to Austin and get some things done that are good for rural Texas. Thank you.
Thanks for having me here tonight. I appreciate it. You guys know where I stood 2 years ago. You know where I stand now from tonight. I haven't changed. I'll stay the same. And it's about you, the people. I'll talk to the elected officials, and I'll talk to the superintendents. But who pays the bills? They don't. You do. The taxpayer pays the bills. So when I knocked on 5,000 doors last time, and hundreds of doors this time, I don't need to talk to a county judge to let the county judge tell me how the people feel. I know how the people feel. So when I can talk to the county judge or the commissioners, I can say, this is how the people feel. These are the people that elected us, and we work for you. And that's the way it should be, whether it's local, state, or whatever. You talk about debt. That's what we keep talking about. Debt. Second highest per capita. Do you guys want to be like California? I don't. So we need to shut down spending. Every county, every city, every school district has a budget. And some of them have debt. Some of them have more debt than others. My school district has $195 million debt. That's almost $30,000 a student for a rural county. $195 million debt. That's a lot of debt, folks. On top of your county debt, on top of your city debt. And these people, they have budgets. All these people we elect, we have budgets. And they need to be held accountable for those budgets. That's what I'm doing. That's what I've done at the state. And I'll continue to stand for Christian values and Christian principles, because that's the way I am. I'm not apologetic about it. That's what I'm going to do. And I'll continue to do that. So I appreciate everybody's vote. I'll work for you. I'll work hard. And it's been an honor to be here this session. Thank you.
they said it's going to be a doozy between these two. And I'm over here, the lone wolf, over here in Coleman County, but I didn't wag my tail and say, woe is me. I said, I have a plan. And I don't know why is the word Holy Grail, is it, we don't talk about illegal immigration? I looked it up on the internet, illegal alien, illegal immigrant, undocumented immigrant, and the latest one is, I love it, is, unlawful presence. Yeah, read it. I mean, read up on it. Four names for people who aren't supposed to be here, but the same result. They're draining us for between $50 and $85 billion a year. And this is from the computer. And I've gone to several websites, so I don't just pick on one. And they're all real close on what it's costing us. It's very costly, and we're not addressing it. We talk about debt. You know, where's the money going to come from? Well, I think let's go with the lowest figure. Let's go with $50 billion a year as the estimate. And by the way, they say 2 billion plus illegals in Texas, but nobody knows for sure because nobody's coming forward to fill out any surveys. And I'll tell you what, I had a friend of mine, because I like Marty Robbins. He said, Greg, he says, you're stuck in 1955. I said, okay, it's all right. I like Marty Robbins. But you know what? I can also look ahead. And if we don't take care, I'm going to start crying. If we don't take care of this illegal immigration situation, we're not going to have a state. We're going to be so far under, owing whoever money, and they're laughing all the way. They're laughing all the way. And I want to be the catalyst. I love that word. I want to go down there, and you put me in the mix, and I'm going to stir things up. And I want Governor Abbott to go from Amarillo to Brownsville, from Texarkana to El Paso. How was your geography? Does that cover Texas pretty good? In the newspapers, it's going to be in the newspapers, it's going to be in the television, it's going to be the mayor, the councilman, and everybody, including the average citizen. We got to be behind it. We have to be behind it if it's going to work. And we're going to give a 90-day grace period to get illegals enough. We're gracious people, right? Get your stuff in order, because and my wife says, Gregory, don't use the word go back. I said, well, I saw it for a second. I said, okay, return. Return to your country of origin. Come back, like I said at the beginning, and come in legally. And we will welcome you. We will welcome you, but it's going to happen. If we're behind it, it's going to happen. And all this money we're talking about, a lot of it's going to come back to us. You know why I know I'm on the right train of thought, or trying to do the right thing? Because I sit in my living room, and I'm retired, like I said, retired Air Force, retired school teacher, and I draw Social Security, and I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable, and I can dedicate 5 or 6 days a week and enjoy doing it to all these counties. And I'll even dare enter into Hood County, but I'll go to Toller first to see how's the water, test the waters. Little humor's all right. Little humor's all right. I kind of want to say this too for you Cisco and Eastland people, since I got a lot of time left, right? I said, I think I'd win them over if I landed in a spaceship and I have these antennas coming out of my ears, and they go, who are you? I said, I am from Jupiter, but I like high school football. Oh. I'd be all right. It's a serious thing. It's a serious thing. I want to be a catalyst. Back to my original thing here. I sit in my living room and I say, okay, American citizen, American baby. Okay, American citizen and illegal, I'm still going to give the benefit of the doubt to the kid. We're going to get American citizen. But illegal, no. No. It just doesn't it makes zero sense. So I'm this couple down in Nicaragua, and I've got nothing against Nicaragua. And they're saying, hey, baby, you're 7 months pregnant. Let's find a way to get to the United States. And they get here, they have ways, right? They get here illegally, have the baby up in Lubbock, and all of a sudden this child is a U.S. citizen. It's time's up already. God bless you.
Well, I believe that free civic debate on this kind of level is just, it's key to the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. And for that reason, Greg, and Mr. Largent, Mr. Lang, I appreciate all three of you being here tonight, subjecting yourselves to these questions. And I know the campaign trail is not a lot of fun. And we appreciate you coming, and we appreciate you being with us tonight. And I appreciate all of you that came and took the time out of your day and your week to come and hear what these men have to say, because, you know, our republic depends on the freedom that these men are elected to enforce when they go to Austin. And there's not many free places left in the world. And for that reason, thank you for coming, and consider all three. You know, tonight was all about that. And again, I thank you for all for being here, and I thank you for coming. Richard, I thank you for being our moderator tonight. I thank the Eastern County Republican Party, the executive committee for helping put this event together. And I thank you all for being here tonight. And with that, you're dismissed. Thank you.